panic had set in and I was trying to breathe and couldn't really catch my breath. So I took a big breath and gasped and said, "I'm not dead," because I knew the next person that came in that door was going to think I was.
Travis Reinking, a charismatic 29-year-old based in Nashville, Tennessee, leads a life of intrigue and adversity. He carries on a tumultuous long-distance relationship with music icon Taylor Swift, penning heartfelt letters during their time apart to make her feel cherished. However, their bond intensifies into something Travis struggles to reconcile with his independent spirit. He's frustrated with Taylor's public interferences about their private life, feeling misrepresented and belittled. In particular, her comments insinuate Travis is transgender, whereas he identifies as bisexual. Mortified by the inaccurate portrayal, Travis considers a clean break from the drama-laden relationship. Travis is at a loss with Taylor Swift, so he writes a letter to Oprah Winfrey outlining his concern with his pop star girlfriend. The following is the letter being read out loud.
Oprah, I'm writing you because I'm in love with Taylor Swift and I don't know if I'm delusional or not. I started writing Taylor June 2nd, 2015. The letters were about dreams that I was having. I saw Taylor for the first time September 29th, 2015. It was at a concert and she mouthed the words "hello" to me while she was singing a song. After that, I started to notice that what I was saying to her was getting repeated back to me on the internet. Also, things that I was doing on my phone and computer. I wrote her and gave her permission to do those things because she was being nice to me and I didn't want her to feel guilty. Later, I took back permission for her to do that because she started being cruel and lying about everything. She catfished me on the internet, made me fall in love with her, and then started being nasty to me. Taylor would link me videos that were correlated to my life. I would use algebraic substitution to assume identities between different characters. Normally, I would see a character as me if they had the same life situations as me.
Complicating matters, Travis frequently relocates due to menacing harassment from unspecified government entities. They track his movements with precision, seemingly complicit in the recurring break-ins he endures at each new home. Their ominous surveillance fuels Travis's sense of helplessness and isolation. Travis finds himself frequently compelled to abruptly relocate. One evening at a hotel, he hears the door handle to his room jiggling as though someone attempts intrusion from outside. Seized by terror of the mysterious stalkers incessantly surveilling and tormenting him, Travis frantically tears up and down the motel halls, trying to spot possible perpetrators. In his frenzy, he busts into the room of a startled family staying at the motel, accusing them of conspiring with his tormentors before management responds to the disruption. The police are called to the motel and upon arrival, discover an alarmed Travis still worked up over his persecution, along with shaking guests roused from their rooms by his unwelcomed intrusion.
This man down here was running up and down up the top and then down here screaming at everyone's door, telling them he'll make as much noise as he wants. And I looked at him, I said, I have kids and they're getting ready for bed. And he was right there at that white truck, literally ran into our hotel and tried to hit me, acting like he was going to put his hands on me.
I was walking by trying to figure out who's knocking on my window. Someone's knocking on my window outside the building. They come outside on the railing, right out front of the door. You know, there's no one who's standing right in front of my door. Okay. And they'll be talking loud at night. They'll knock on the windows and then walk off. And I don't know who it is. Okay. And they do this just to harass somebody. And several nights in a row, and I got sick of it. So I went out. I'm walking up and down the porch and I'm making noise. You know, because I don't like it. I don't like it like that. I want other people to understand how I feel. Okay. You know, when people are just being loud, noisy, this lady then comes walking up and she's like, "What are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. You know, sticking her nose in the business. Like, hey, if you just got here, I mean, apparently you had nothing to do with it. But now she wants to please people. And it's just like, what are you doing? You know, just leave me alone.
At his wit's end, Travis journeys to Washington, D.C. to speak to the president directly. Boldly arriving at the White House gates, he explains his harrowing story and demands protective action. However, the guards only offer public tours. Dismayed but undeterred, Travis strives to broadcast his whistleblower findings until the intimidation is exposed and seized. He senses divine purpose in his tribulations, as though he was chosen to sound the alarm. Through perseverance and new allies, Travis gains hope that he can overcome the forces that torment him. Travis feels that he has been singled out and endowed with a special purpose. He increasingly receives transmissions in his mind from benevolent beings, guiding him on a quest for justice. At first, the messages seem intuitive hunches, but in quiet moments, Travis realizes the wisdom originates external to his typical thoughts. The beings operate incognito to avoid interfering with Travis's self-determination. However, sensing his frustration and desperation, they open direct communication with him, revealing themselves as extraterrestrial intermediaries between humanity and our spiritual creatures. They assure Travis that the divine watches over all. They counsel Travis to have faith that the truth will eventually defeat deception, even when orchestrated in the halls of power. The extraterrestrials provide tactical strategies for dealing with Travis's harassment based on their eons of uplifting civilizations across the cosmos. They remind Travis to approach adversaries from a perspective of love and redemption rather than anger or hopelessness. However, they also give instructions for documenting and reporting the criminal transgressions to build an irrefutable case with authorities. Desperate for intervention, Travis compiles a video intended as evidence for YouTube audiences, revealing how interlopers sneak through the barricades fortifying his apartment while law enforcement dismiss his pleas, hoping documentation of disturbed ramblings and disheveled living conditions will finally elicit belief and assistance from the court of public opinion.
And so, I have, really high, spatial awareness. I took a test at the community college in my area, and I can either find it if I have the results here still, or I can go to the community college and get the results, because I took a test there, a placement test. And I scored 99 percentile, on this test that they had for spatial awareness. And they said it was the second highest testing that they'd ever seen for that at that school, when 18,000 people go there per year, per semester. And so it's a really high score. And I haven't put my toilet seat on. I know for a fact that this toilet seat was down. I know for a fact that the toilet seat was down. I never put my toilet seat up because I don't like it messing up my toilet. If you stand up and you piss into your toilet, water splashes and the stuff goes everywhere. It makes a mess. So I always leave the seat down. I always sit down to pee or do anything. I never lift my toilet seat up. And yet this is what's happened. And then before, I have come in here and the door will be cracked like that. It's not all the way shut. It's not all the way open. I always leave it all the way open, or I leave it all the way shut. I never leave it cracked open. I never do that. And I know for a fact, that I didn't leave it that way. So somebody has been coming in here. And then, like I said to my dad the other day, there's fingerprints on the sides of my laptop. There's fingerprints on the sides. I never open the lid that way. When I open the lid of my laptop, I always grab it here and open it, And then if I carry it like this, from the bottom. My fingers are never like that. I always carry it like this. But somebody did, because there was fingerprints, 4 fingerprints across the top of the lid like that. Then I open up, so that's suspicious, I think that's suspicious that I see these fingerprints on there.
Travis synthesizes this multidimensional insight into concrete plans of action. His morale renewed knowing such wise and compassionate allies are assisting his cause from realms beyond ordinary perception. With persistence and courage, he is determined to expose the violations against him, using means of both spiritual and earthly. After enduring relentless torment, Travis decides it is time to claim control of his life. He strides into the BMW dealership, emanating confidence, directly approaching a sales rep, declaring that one of the sleek vehicles out front now belongs to him. Travis plucks a set of keys off the manager's desk and heads for the luxury car lot. Bewildered, the company shrinks from confrontation with this unusual man, exuding such confidence. As Travis fires up the vehicle and cruises down the road, no one dares challenge his bold proclamation. He spends the evening enveloped in leather seats, marveling inwardly at the bizarrely easy heist. When Travis returns to his modest apartment complex with the extravagant vehicle, he wonders if other worldly forces beyond his comprehension steer his fate. The next morning, sheriffs calmly collect the stolen vehicle to transport back to the lot. To Travis's astonishment, no one even questions him about the stolen vehicle. A glow of invisibility begins pulsating through his entire being. It dawns on him that a greater mission must be in play, suited only to someone of his fearless personality. As his supernatural allies hinted, Travis accepts that his calling stretches beyond even his extraordinarily vivid imagination. With the sureness of destiny, he sets forth toward an unconventionally significant future purpose, yet unseen on this earthly plane. Where it takes him, Travis is prepared to embrace his role as a transcendent changemaker. Travis is searching for guidance on what to do next. Suddenly, he hears a voice in his head, claiming to be God, giving him firm instructions that are not to be questioned. God tells Travis that the government officials who wronged him hang out at a Waffle House down the street. God commands Travis to go there and kill 3 of them in order to take something they can never have back, their lives. Travis hesitates, feeling conflicted. The odd order doesn't sound like the compassionate messages he previously received from extraterrestrials. Travis also doesn't want to kill 3 people, since he knows this is not morally just. However, Travis feels duty-bound as a devoted follower. Although uncertain, Travis decides he cannot defy a direct order from his creator. Wearing only a long green coat, Travis reluctantly heads to the Waffle House, clutching his weapon that contains 30 rounds. Despite personal doubts, he prepares to obey the divine mission of taking 3 lives, hoping it will somehow stop his governmental adversaries. Travis pulls up to the glowing Waffle House, ready to serve as an instrument of God's will. He sits in his truck for a few minutes, watching the patrons walk in and out of the front doors. Travis is hoping for a sign, since he is still unsure about the mission. He receives his first sign, hazards of another vehicle flashing in his rearview mirror. This can only mean one thing: it's time. However, Travis doesn't know who the government officials are that he needs to target. But wait, another sign just in time. The number 3. That's it. That's the last sign. The man walking directly next to his vehicle has a hat on with the number 3. He steps out of his truck wearing nothing but his green jacket that holds another 60 rounds. Travis aims, fires, and shoots, hitting the man 5 times, 3 around his waist, 1 in his head, and 1 in his leg. Travis was so disoriented that he shot a total of 15 rounds in the parking lot, hitting another man as well. Travis takes a sigh, knowing 1 is down to his knowledge, and he has 2 more to go. He enters the Waffle House and shoots 15 more rounds aimlessly around. He strikes 6 more people inside before running out of rounds in his magazine. He reaches in his jacket for more ammo, and as he does, a man named James Shaw jumps out and tackles Travis. He grabs the gun and throws it across the room. Travis is pushed out of the Waffle House doors. In a fit of confusion, Travis loses his jacket, his only piece of clothing, and walks away from the Waffle House down the street, eventually making it into a wooded area. Over 30 hours pass before the authorities finally find Travis in the woods with a backpack. He is taken into custody and charged with 4 counts of criminal homicide. Let's now fast forward to the trial of Travis Reinking. First, the prosecution takes the stage. They outline the chilling details of the Waffle House massacre that irreparably devastated multiple lives. Methodically, they delineate how Travis arrived that early morning equipped for slaughter, his pockets and backpack brimming with instruments of destruction. The prosecution argues that Travis's deliberate actions leading up to the shooting demonstrate clear premeditation and awareness. His choices regarding timing, dress, weapon selection, amassing 90 extra ammunition rounds, all indicate focused preparation characteristics of a cold and calculated killer, not a delusional madman. They describe Travis specifically targeting innocent customers rather than employees, or so he thought, government officials. His acts were intended to brutally punish strangers for perceived grievances by robbing them of their life and joy. The prosecution contends that Travis's evasion of authorities for over 30 hours proves that he comprehended the evil and illegality of his wicked deeds. They will counter the defense of insanity by underscoring that Travis himself confessed awareness to forensic psychologists, admitting he wavered beforehand due to understanding the sinister nature of the violence he would soon inflict.
And he chose to take 90 rounds of ammunition. He chose that parking spot where he could see everything. He chose to fire upon Joe Perez Jr., someone who wasn't inside the Waffle House, who was parked in a parking spot. He chose to fire upon him first. He chose to fire upon Torian Sonderland as he ran away from him. And he made a very specific choice to not go to the left, not go to where the Waffle House employees would be. He chose to go to the right, where the customers were. He chose to go to where there were 7 more people. He chose not to stop. The evidence presented to you during this trial will be that Travis Reinking went there to take something that couldn't be given back. He went there to take lives. The evidence will be that this was an act of revenge done out of anger. The evidence will be that Travis Reinking took Joe Perez Jr.'s life in an act of revenge, that Travis Reinking took Torian Sonderland's life in an act of revenge. He took Aquila De Silva's life in an act of revenge. He took Ebony Grove's life in an act of revenge. Their families cannot get them back. And Travis Reinking did this to punish them. And at the end of all of the proof, we will ask that you return a verdict that he is guilty of all 16 counts of the indictment.
Next is the defense. The defense argues that Travis suffers from long-standing and severe mental illness, specifically schizophrenia. For years leading up to the shooting, Travis battled paranoid delusions that grew increasingly violent in his mind, involving Taylor Swift and the government tormenting and assaulting him. He genuinely believed these delusions, desperately pleading with law enforcement for help on multiple occasions, and even traveling to Washington, D.C. to seek an audience with the president. On the night of the tragic shooting, the defense contends that Travis's perception of reality was unrelentingly distorted by his illness. In his delusional state, he believed God was commanding him to go to the Waffle House as an act of self-defense against government agents who had been psychologically torturing him. Every choice and action Travis made that night stemmed directly from the profound disconnection from reality inflicted by his schizophrenia. Even waiting in the parking lot, rifle in hand, he sought a divine sign to call off his delusion. The defense continues to argue that when evaluating this case, Travis's choices and conduct cannot be separated from the warped lens of his severe mental incapacity. The defense contends that Travis was legally insane during the events in question, and must be found not guilty by reason of insanity. His illness, not malice, propelled the events that night.
It doesn't stop with what happened at the Waffle House, and it doesn't start with what happened at the Waffle House. What the proof is going to show in this case is that Travis Reinking is severely mentally ill. He's schizophrenic. And he's battled this for years. And you're going to hear expert testimony to talk about a 3 to 5 year period leading up to that night. You're going to hear that Mr. Reinking was driven by delusions, paranoid thinking, auditory hallucinations. One of those delusions you're going to hear about began with a Taylor Swift concert where he believed that Taylor Swift was talking directly to him. And that he went on to believe he was in a relationship with Taylor Swift, that he was her real boyfriend. He is completely untethered from reality. And he is driven by his delusion that people are after him.
Shantia Wagner, a survivor, takes the stand. She describes hearing extremely loud gunshots that hurt her ears. She realized it was gunfire when the glass shattered. She remembers crawling on the floor trying to get to her boyfriend after realizing he had been shot too. She's distressed to find her own leg is nearly detached. The bone is missing, and only a bit of skin is still holding her leg to her body. She tried staying calm for her boyfriend's sake. She recalls seeing James Shaw tackle Travis to the ground and out of the Waffle House. When James Shaw came back to see what he could do to help, she remembers him looking at her and regrettably telling her that he could not help her. She panics and calls her mother. Her mom initially didn't understand the gravity of the situation, but she tells her mother that she loves her and that she's not sure if she's gonna make it. Finally, paramedics arrive to help Shantia and the others. Shantia is in extreme pain, and the only way to transport her with her dangling leg is to shove her leg back on. The paramedics warn her that this is going to be extremely painful. She screamed and held the paramedic tightly as he did it. Before she leaves, she tells her boyfriend, "I love you if I don't get to say it again." However, he's unable to respond. She makes it to the hospital. However, the hospital is so full that she is left in the hall on her gurney without any pain medications.
Can you describe what they sounded like?
The first one was an extremely loud pop to the point to where it really hurt my left ear. And then hearing became very distant in my left ear.
Did you know whether it was a gunshot at the time?
The first sound I heard, no, I didn't. But the second one I knew because that's when glass started to shatter.
And what did you do once the glass began to shatter?
In a split second, I looked at Akili, and we both just got on the floor, and I ended up crawling on the floor next to him.
Did you hear any more gunshots as you were on the floor?
Yes, the gunshots just kept coming, and I was just wondering when they were going to stop.
Did they get louder at all?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It was so drowned out. The noises were so loud that after a certain point of the noises keep happening, they all sounded the same. I was shot, and the gunshot had ripped my leg away. And I couldn't get to him because my leg was heavy. It was still attached in the back.
And what do you mean by that, ripped your leg away?
It was severed. Like, the only thing I had connecting was a little bit of skin on the back. And that prevented me from getting to Akili because it hurt to drag it.
You couldn't move your leg?
No.
But you were still trying to get to Aquila at the time?
Yes.
Was it? Can you describe anything else about your injury as you were there?
I then began to notice that it wasn't just when I knew it had, was decapitated in a sense. I then noticed that my bone was missing, in the middle, it just wasn't there anymore. There was no bone. I couldn't figure out where it had went to, and I was just trying to keep calm because I knew Aquila was beside me, and if I panicked, that he was going to panic even more.
Sharita Henderson, another survivor, takes the stand. She recalls going to the Waffle House with her friend and sitting in the booth, singing gospel songs together happily just before the shooting started. Sharita pushed her friend under the table and lied on top of her to shield her, feeling responsible for her young sorority sister. As she heard the gunshots continue, Sharita worried about her friend. She witnessed others being shot right in front of her. Sharita recalls Travis looking right in her eyes. She remembers begging him for mercy with her eyes. But he shoots her anyway, nearly blowing off her leg. The pain is the worst she had ever felt. Sharita passes out and has a near-death experience, begging God for a second chance at life. She comes to and takes a deep breath and realizes she has to tell someone she's alive, or else they'll think she's dead. When the first responders finally arrived, they had great difficulty getting Sharita onto the gurney and through the door with her leg barely attached. She felt every bump and excruciating pain on the ambulance ride. At the hospital, Sharita begged the nurse to borrow her phone so she could tell her mom she loves her, thinking she may die. Her shocked parents had assumed it was just a car accident. Sharita endured 24 surgeries, with vein replacements to save her arm and leg. She can no longer draw artwork or play tennis like she used to. Her whole life is forever altered.
And I just tried to be as still as possible because I felt like if I breathed, he would know that I was still alive. And I wanted to be as still as possible and pretend like I was dead. And I figured if he thought I had already been shot, he wouldn't shoot me. But as soon as he came in the door, he looked me in my eyes and he shot me immediately. He shot me 3 times. He shot me in my right forearm. So I have a concave injury. This is the entrance, and then on the front of my forearm is the exit wound. That's right here. It's about this long. And then I was shot in my upper bicep, and it took a chunk of my arm off. And the bullet fragments ended up in the soft tissue right outside of my lungs. And then he also shot me in my leg, and my leg was detached. It was hanging on by tendons and skin. And I remember looking at it, and because I didn't see my arm at first, and I just remember looking at my leg like, God, please help me, because I don't think I'm gonna make it. And I looked at my leg and I passed out. So I think I was in such shock that I passed out for a couple of seconds. And
do you remember feeling pain at that moment?
Immediately.
Can you describe that pain?
It was the worst pain I've ever felt. It was excruciating. It was probably worse than some of the surgeries that I've had, but those were extreme as well.
When Mr. Reinking came inside the Waffle House, you've described that he looked right at you before he shot you.
Yes.
Was he saying anything?
He didn't say anything, but he looked at me in my eyes and he was determined. He knew what he was doing and what he planned to do. And I'm sure my eyes looked like I was begging for mercy without saying anything. And he shot me anyway.
Ms. Henderson, you described that the first responders finally were there and they had a gurney. Were you taken to the hospital?
Yes, it took a while for them to unpin me from underneath the booth. And so I think one of them had crawled to the second booth to grab part of my leg so that it would stay as close to attached as possible because it was just hanging on. And I just kept screaming. And then they finally were able to get the board underneath me. And they were asking about a tourniquet, like, did I need one or not? And they ended up placing like 2 tourniquets on me and then getting me onto the gurney.
James Shaw, a survivor and hero, takes the stand. He describes the creepy stare from Travis as he passed by his truck in the parking lot. As James was enjoying his meal, he heard the first deafening gunshot and sees a figure falling, Joe Perez collapsing, already shot. The shooting continued. James ran to hide in the bathroom, hearing rapid bursts of gunfire. He stays close to the door, watching for an opportunity to act, knowing hiding would be futile. When the gunfires paused, James felt an urge to rush to the shooter. He rammed through the door to tackle Travis and struggled desperately to grab the rifle barrel, getting burned in the process. James wrestled away the gun and moved Travis forcefully out of his way to escape. He called 911 frantically as he was still fearful for his friend that was left behind in the Waffle House. After calling 911, James returned to the Waffle House scene, horrified by what he sees. He saw gruesome injuries and dead bodies. He stepped over bodies to see what he could do to help others. James recalls the moment Sharita begged him for help. With her leg nearly detached, he knew he could not help her. James holds on to the fact that it had been 1,380 days since the shooting when he took the stand. James is suffering from survivor's guilt. He has been able to live days that others haven't. James's split-second decision to charge at an active shooter was guided by an instinct he can't fully explain, but is a moment that saved many lives.
He was laughing. Then we proceeded to walk in.
Did you see a goldish, tannish pickup truck sitting close by the entrance of the Waffle House?
Yes, it was a Chevy Silverado extended cab.
And did you see anyone inside of that truck?
Yes, I did.
You're kind of looking over to your left. Are you seeing the person that you saw inside the truck in this courtroom?
He's giving me the same look he did that night.
And what was that look?
Looked like he didn't care.
Did either of you say anything, mention that look, the way that he was looking? You are Mr. McMurray?
So Brennan gave you the PG-13 version. Brennan said to me, look at this crazy motherfucker, go shoot up the place. When we walked in. And if you look at the video, I turn around and I look back at him and he's still staring at us. No sooner do we start joking and laughing about that, you kind of hear a noise. I didn't really pay attention. I kind of turn over my left hand shoulder and you can see this figure kind of falling. Now that I know that's Joe Perez, and then the windows are shot out. It looks like a silver glitter is going through the air. All in one turn, I made a step to my right towards Mike Garth and Trey Sneed and went towards the bathroom area. And this is when I just stopped behind the door and looked through the eyelid glass window. And then he turned the gun towards me and he let off a round.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Was there ever a pause in the gunshots?
Yes, it was.
Okay. What did you do when you heard the pause?
I acted.
What do you mean by that?
There was a voice that told me to do it now. and I acted upon that voice because I didn't see any other way. That's why I didn't go in the bathroom, because I told myself that's like shooting fish in a barrel, literally. So I wanted to stay outside that door, try to keep eye on him and just try to find my moment, just try to find my opportunity. And it presented itself.
And what did you do when you found your moment?
I ran through the door as fast as I could. In such a short corridor, there's really only 2 steps that I took behind the door. And I just ran through the door thinking, it's either going to be me or him, or it's going to be, death. We'll see what happens.
What did you hit the door with?
My left shoulder. My whole body. Everything that I could to put through the door, to put into him.
Did you see Mr. Reinking point the gun down before you rushed the door?
Absolutely.
And what did you think he was doing?
Reloading. Put another magazine in.
Once you rushed the door, what happened?
So I had to think while we were literally fighting. I had to think of what I could do and not get injured at the same time and get away. So giving up my hand was the only thing I could do. You're going to have to grab the barrel, James. You're going to have to push it down.
That's the conversation you're having with yourself in your mind? Say yes.
Yes, sir.
Did the 2 of you have to struggle over the weapon?
Yes, sir.
And go ahead.
So when I first run through the door, knocks him off balance, gets up. I then grab the gun with my right hand, the barrel, and I point the barrel down because I know if the barrel's pointed down to the ground, it can't hurt me. It can't really hurt anybody if it's pointed down to the ground. And so I take him and I'm kind of choking him with my left hand, and I pushed him out the way, and he kind of goes for my left hand, and as he goes for my left hand, I take my right hand off. You still use my right hand. I take my left hand off of him, and I just pulling up, and I finally get the gun, and I throw it, and I watch the gun look like it was in the air for days, and I just watched it glide, and it finally went over the bar. And then I wanted to get to safety, and he was in the way. So I moved him out the way.
And Shantia?
Shantia also asked for help, and her leg was pretty much the same way, and I regrettably had to tell her that I couldn't help her either. I was trying to get everybody out. That was my goal, my mission.
Mr. Shahid, do you have any experience in law enforcement, being a paramedic, EMT, anything like that, military?
No, sir.
Okay. So as you're trying to help people, what led you to be able to assist people that day?
I was favored. I was blessed.
And Mr. Shaw, you've obviously been called a hero by many people. Would you say that you were acting out of altruism?
Sure. I mean, in the moment, it's real rough to put a label on it, right? After you've seen what I've seen, and you had to tell these two ladies, I can't help you. But truth and honesty was, I really couldn't move you. I would love to help you, but I couldn't help you.
Let's now look at the forensic psychologist that takes the stand. She diagnosed Travis with long-standing schizophrenia after reviewing years of delusional thinking and paranoid behaviors. She states that Travis genuinely believed he was persecuted by the government agents and Taylor Swift, that he had communicated with aliens, and that he developed special powers, all increasingly violent delusions. In post-shooting interviews and examinations, the psychologist gathered Travis's writings and statements about his deteriorated mental state during the attack. Travis journaled about deciding to carry out the shooting to punish those who had tormented him. However, he also prayed to God for guidance on what action to take, believing he received divine orders from God. He wavered but ultimately surrendered to what his delusions deemed as holy directive. Upon reflection, Travis rationalized that perhaps he had catastrophically misconstrued the command to shoot 3 people at the Waffle House. Though his capacity for perspective was paralyzed by paranoid fantasies of persecution, Travis clung to the notion that a loving God could not truly intend for him to end innocent lives. Grasping for alternate meanings that would both justify the order and preserve human dignity, Travis conjectured wildly, maybe shoot 3 people meant photographing patrons rather than murdering them. Or could the shooting be carried out with a paintball gun instead of a real firearm? The very presence of such moral wrestling reveals the severity of his mental incapacitation. The psychologist states, given the record of Travis's schizophrenia unraveling, along with his own accounts of psychotic compulsion overriding morality, the psychologist concluded Travis did not understand the legal or ethical wrongfulness of opening fire at Waffle House. She argues that his acute illness rendered him incapable of reasoned decision-making, instead propelling him to violence by delusional beliefs far removed from reality.
Tell the jury what schizophrenia is.
Schizophrenia is what we call a psychotic spectrum disorder. The easiest way to think about what schizophrenia is that it's a disorder that's characterized by a break or disconnection from reality. So individuals with schizophrenia oftentimes present with characteristic symptoms or behaviors that really represent this lack of logical connection to the reality that the rest of us know. Delusions are fixed, false beliefs. So these are inaccurate beliefs about the environment around them that are usually unamenable to conflicting information. And what I mean by that is delusions represent some sort of misinterpretation or misperception of reality that persists despite being provided contradictory evidence. An example of someone believing that they were a billionaire and continues to persist in this belief despite showing them bank statements to suggest otherwise. These beliefs are oftentimes very rigid, they're inflexible, they persist over time. One of the things that we know about individuals who develop delusions is that there's sort of a series of processes that happen, sort of cognitive distortions that serve to not only develop these delusions, but also persist over time. And these are things like jumping to conclusions. So if I'm working on my computer and it suddenly shuts down, me as someone who's not concerned about being persecuted or attacked is not going to make much of that. And I'll turn the computer back on. I'll attribute it to some glitch in the computer. Someone like Mr. Reinking, for example, who believed that he was being hacked and believed that these technology that he had been compromised, interprets that as evidence of this persecution. That's a piece of information that he uses and cites to suggest that this delusion is real. And so I say that just to sort of provide to you, I'll talk to you about some of the examples of ways in which Mr. Reinking developed these beliefs, but also they persisted over time with these messages that he was perceiving in the environment.
The thing that made him angry is that he thought people were treating him in an evil way, right?
He was upset about his treatment, yes.
He was very upset about it, very
Correct.
angry about it.
Correct.
Right? So then in response to that, he wants to punish them and treat them in a way that is equal to what he feels like he went through.
He did describe that when he mentioned the punitive actions, correct.
Okay. And we've already discussed that someone who understands that who would describe their actions as evil is someone who is able to understand that their actions are wrong.
Could you rephrase that?
we discussed that someone who would describe their actions as evil, that would be consistent with a person who understands that their actions are wrong.
It could be yes.
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 Okay. I think I want to make sure we put the bed. You have not. No testimony here that Travis Reinking didn't know what he was doing. He knew that he was killing people, right?
Yes.
He could appreciate the nature of his conduct.
Correct.
He knew that when he walked in, he pulled out that gun, he fired and shot Joe and shot Torian and shot Ebony and shot Sharita and shot Akila and shot Shantia and shot James Shaw Jr.
Objection, compound play.
Well, that he knew exactly what he was doing.
He believed he was killing the people that were targeting him, yes.
Right.
Travis faces 16 counts in total and was found guilty on all charges. In the end, he receives 4 life sentences that run consecutively and an additional 114 years on the remaining charges. Was Travis's schizophrenia the cause of his actions? Or was his diagnosis used as a crutch? Central to comprehending the psychological underpinnings of Travis's crime is recognizing how the distorted thinking and lost grip on reality caused by schizophrenia leaves sufferers profoundly vulnerable to paranoia. As the condition disintegrates, links between thoughts, emotions, and external stimuli, internal perceptions shape a new, distorted pseudo-reality. Travis's schizophrenia-generated delusions convinced him that former crush Taylor Swift was violently persecuting him with the backing of a far-reaching conspiracy. Though completely unfounded, this paranoid fantasy organically grew more elaborate over years, without proper medication or therapy to reinstate balance in his malfunctioning brain. Eventually, Travis came to sincerely but irrationally viewed himself as relentlessly targeted by a vast network of stalkers and assailants. Outlandish as this belief system was to grounded observers, within his disturbed mind is comprised of an inescapable nightmare reality, requiring extreme action and self-defense. A prominent psychological theory traces Travis's crime partially to increasingly grandiose delusions stemming from the symptoms of schizophrenia. Despite living unassumingly prior to the shooting, Travis harbored elaborate beliefs that he was in a romantic relationship with Taylor Swift and communicating with extraterrestrial aliens. As his schizophrenia deteriorated, the elaborate fantasy further expanded to include conducting high-level government business and negotiating directly with the President of the United States. These fanciful ideas of securing unmatched fame and political connections through his supposed cosmic connections fed Travis's underlying narcissism and fragility even as he languished in obscurity. As schizophrenia dismantled perception of reality, sufferers often construct elaborate new realities that compensate for the smallness and powerlessness they feel as mental illness overtakes their lives. Their brain supplies grandiose delusions that put them at the center of importance and control. Medications and therapy aim to rebalance their neurochemistry, while addressing the deeper insecurities driving their disordered thinking. However, Travis shunned treatment and instead became consumed by his intensifying delusions of supremacy and persecution. Travis's lethal shooting spree targeting random civilians at an unassuming local Waffle House seems incongruent with his outward, grandiose delusions involving relationships with celebrities and a special prophetic mission from God. In actuality, attacking vulnerable bystanders easily accessed in his everyday life could have fulfilled an underlying craving for power no longer satisfied by his failed fantasy realities. Though the location's ordinariness clashes with his explicit claims of obeying divine commands, channeling violent impulses onto conveniently available victims likely served to uphold, rather than undermine his towering yet brittle self-conception. Some psychologists propose that Travis's decision to only wear a light jacket, despite being naked underneath, connects to past incidents of public exposure and lewd acts indicating exhibitionistic tendencies. His near nudity while committing the crime could alternatively constitute an exhibitionist display reflecting internal preoccupations with flaunting taboo sexuality and violence. As always, this analysis is not intended to absolve Travis of his horrific crimes. We will always remember Joe Perez Jr., Tarian Sanderlin, D'Ebony Groves, and Aquila da Silva. Do you think this was Travis's schizophrenic episode? Or was this used as an excuse to cover up his true intent? Was this a spur of the moment, or was this premeditated? Please remember to subscribe to the channel to receive automatic reminders of our weekly videos, which we premiere on Sundays followed by a live hangout session, and to also be reminded of our weekday live streams where we cover full trials and true crime stories. Also, if you want early access to ad-free and uncensored versions of all Wicked videos, feel free to become a channel member. Becoming a member will also give you access to exclusive emotes and badges, which you can flex in the comments and during our live streams. Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we explore the psychological maze of some of the most wicked people.